Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. Well, today I have a fun announcement for you. Over the weekend, I held a virtual retreat for my Together We Sew quilting retreat business, and I premiered my new pattern, Pinwheel Picnic, as you can see on the wall behind me. So today I wanted to let you know that it is available now in my Etsy shop, and also I'm going to post up after this a little video I did for the retreat showing how to make the block. So if you're interested, head over and grab my pattern and then come back here and watch the little video. Okay, so these are all the pieces that I need for this block. I have my 4 background strips. I have 2 smaller squares, which are going to be cut in half. I didn't cut them yet because I wanted to show you guys how to cut them, just in case that was confusing at all. And then I have my larger square with the larger background square. So hopefully you've cut all these ahead, so you already know what you're doing. But I'm going to go ahead and cut them just in case. Set those strips aside. Grab my smaller 2 squares here. These are the 2 print squares. And I'm going to just cut these in half. So these ones need to be just cut in half, corner to corner. So I've got that one taken care of. Now these are going to be paired up with the strips here. So I'm going to set those together. And then the larger square you're going to pair with a larger white square. Now I told you guys to cut all these ahead of time, so go ahead and pair those up in sets of 4. But if you didn't cut them yet, a little bit quicker way to cut them is you can, and pair them, keep them paired together, is you can put your print square with your background square and then cut them both at the same time and cut it diagonally each direction. So we're going to cut one way and then we're going to cut the other way, corner to corner. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave those piled together and take them over to the sewing machine, making sure I'm paying attention to the direction according to the pattern of how I'm going to sew these. So I'm just going to pull them over one at a time and just start sewing them, and I'm going to chain piece them to make them go faster. Now we're using a 1/4 inch seam allowance for this project. So our standard seam allowance. So I'm just going to sew all these together. Isn't it funny how we cut fabric apart just to sew it back together again? I think that's why all quilters are just a little bit crazy. Okay, so I've got all these sewn together. I'm going to leave those for a minute and then grab my other pieces here for this block. Now, these pieces, you'll lay one strip out and put one of your triangles on top. And then I do recommend starting to sew from this end, not the pointed end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over, except I'm doing this wrong. I apologize. This goes on top of here. So I'm going to flip this over so I can see, but I'm going to start from the print or the flat end instead of the pointed end. If you have a machine that sucks your points down in, you want to start definitely from the flat end. So the white goes on top of the colored piece. And again, I'm just going to chain piece all of these. Feel free to pin these if you like. To hold them together, I'm just going to hold them together as I go here. Just lining up those bottom edges really well. And be careful that, make sure you take all your pieces apart, because when I sewed a sample block, I sewed 2 of these triangles onto one strip, not realizing that 2 of them were stuck together. So just beware of that. Especially depending on what kind of fabric you're using. Batiks tend to stick together a little bit, and I'm using batiks. So all right, last one. Okay, so there's all those pieces. Let me grab some snips. And we'll cut all these guys apart, and then we will press them. And at this point, there's no trimming to do yet. We're just sewing our bits together and pressing. So what I would say is put one block together, and after you've got your one block together, you could probably chain piece the whole rest, all the rest of the blocks, like do all of the sets. Run all the first pair, or first 4, the second 4, and then leave them attached and just keep going with each block. But I would try to do one block first, just to make sure that you've got it down. Okay. Here we go. Got the magic juice ready this morning. Give those a press. This is just an extra step with the acorn. You guys don't have to do this if you don't want to. Y'all know how much I love my magic juice. Okay, I've pressed all of those. I'm going to press these guys. Now, for these ones, typically, you can press either way, but I feel like, see how this, if you press it this way, it doesn't really want to go that way. So you keep trying to flip back, because then you have this extra up here. So I suggest pressing it towards the print, because then you're not fussing with all of that. Kind of listen to your fabric. If it's not wanting to press a certain way and the instructions aren't telling you which way to print it, or press it, I should say, follow your fabric. It knows where it wants to go. Now be careful not to stretch these too much, or at all. Your triangles. One more, and we can start building this block. All right, now I know these units look funny with all this extra, but I promise it'll work out fine. Don't trim anything. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're going to chain piece these guys too. So I'm going to line everything up. You're going to make sure that your strip is on your right hand side, your white strip, and the white from this should be touching your white strip. So just like this. So don't have your piece, you don't want the white touching the print. You want the prints touching and the whites touching. Just like that. Now, this is the part that you need to pay attention to when you put these together. Okay? Make sure you line up this bottom edge. That's really important to get the right size blocks. So I'm going to line this up, and I'm going to start sewing from this side too. Line this up from the bottom edge. And if you've cut these correctly, they should just touch or maybe just a smidge overhang this top piece here. Okay? So hopefully you guys can see that. They should join down here and then just touch or barely overhang. I've got like 1/8 of an inch right there. And then start sewing from this edge. If your 1/4 inch tends to be on the wider side, I'm not a scant 1/4 inch kind of girl, but you might want to do a scant 1/4 inch for these or they're not going to come out the right size. So you should have something that looks like this with this funny little tail on it. We'll cut that off in a minute. Let's go ahead and piece the rest of these together. Again, colored pieces touching. It's the most important to line up these bottom pieces. Everything else will fall into place, I promise. And when we trim these, you're not going to be trimming but slivers off of these. So that's what I was saying. If you have a little bit wider of a 1/4 inch, make sure you're doing a scant on these. Again, after you get the hang of this step, you can go ahead and chain piece these for the rest of the blocks. I'm just kind of doing them slowly to show you what to do and to kind of get in the hang of sewing these. Okay, so I've got all my pieces sewn together. Now I'm going to grab my rotary cutter and a ruler and cut these little tails off. So I'm just going to line my ruler up with the edge of my fabric and take that off. Okay? Do that for all of these. All right, now close that so I don't cut myself. Now I'm going to press all these guys. It doesn't really matter which way you press them, as long as you press, you're going to want to press all the pieces the same direction. So if you press towards this piece, press all 4 that way, or if you press towards this piece, press all 4 that way. they'll just lay together nicer when you put them all together, if you press them all the same direction. So we're going to put some magic juice on there. Excuse me. And give these guys a press. The flatter your blocks are, the more precise they are, the better they'll come together. So. All right, so that's one quadrant. I'm going to press the rest of these, and then we'll trim these down. Now all these should measure 6.5 inches square after we trim them down. And then when we put all 4 of those together, that'll give you your 12.5 inch square block. One more. Okay. Now we will trim these guys down and then sew them together. So let me get that out of the way. Grab my ruler again. It's really helpful if you have a 6.5 inch wide ruler or larger to trim these down. So I'm going to find on my ruler that 45-degree line right there. Most rulers have it. And this is a 6.5 inch wide ruler. So I'm going to find my center, and the center of 6.5 would be 3 1/4. As long as I'm doing my maths right. Alright, I'm just going to trim this down. Oops, I knocked it a little bit. Measure 3 times, cut once. So those 2 sides are trimmed off. I just need to put this on the 6.5 inch line both ways. And as you can see that we're only cutting off little slivers, so yeah, there's not much to trim off these. And then we have our unit. So we're gonna go ahead and trim the rest of these. I'll trim one more with you guys, and then I'll trim the rest down, and then we'll sew this block together. This is the slowest part for me. I'm a very slow cutter. Oops. Because I like everything to be very precise. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the other 2 and come back, and then we'll sew this block together. Okay, so I've got all my blocks cut. So the next thing we need to do is put them together in pairs. So both are going to be put together the exact same way. I already did one just to save a little bit of time, but we're going to line them up the same. So we're going to have the, well, in my case, it's the blueprint touching my pink print, but whatever it is for you all. Make sure your prints are touching the opposite colors, and then we're going to make 2 of those identical and press them both the same way. So that way, when we go to put this block together, all we have to do is turn this piece around, and they're pressed opposite directions for nesting, and you have a perfect pinwheel. So I already did one. I'm going to set that aside and go ahead and put this together. I'm going to sew it down here and then press towards my blue piece. Okay, got that one pressed. So now we're just going to turn this one around and we're going to join them together, and those should nest really nicely right in the middle. Okay, and there we have it, our nice pinwheel block. Everything lines up right in the center, which is what we want. And this guy is 12.5 by 12.5 square. Awesome. So it came out the right size and everything. Look at that. All right, there you go. So now that we've made one together, get to work. You have 8 more to make. No, really, if you have any questions as you're making these, please don't hesitate to unmute and ask. I'm here to help you. Once you get one block, I promise you this will go really fast. This project you can get done fairly quickly. So good luck, and can't wait to see what your blocks look like. Thanks, guys. Well, thank you so much to all the ladies and gentlemen who came out to the retreat. It was a fun day, and I'm so happy to see all of the different variations of colors for my blocks and for the quilt. Several people did finish the quilt on Sunday, so that was amazing to see. And I wanted to thank all of you too who have been supporting me. A lot of you have purchased my new pattern, Starshine, the one that features Starberry fabrics by Corey Yoder. And Pinwheel Picnic is now available. This is a smaller quilt. It's easy to put together. It would be great for a child or a baby, but the reason I wrote it is to have a quilt that you can put in your car and take on a picnic or take to the beach or something fun like that for the summer. So I hope you enjoy my new pattern, Pinwheel Picnic, and I'll see you guys really soon. Take care. Bye.